Have you found yourself unable to sleep, spending restless nights in bed, sweating and dreading the day of your next adventure, when you will have to describe things yet again to your friends, who, much to your dismay, will give you vacant expressions and bored faces as you trudge and stumble your way through yet another terrible description that will leave them bedazzled and confused? Well, my friend, you may be troubled no longer. I, Cikito Grande, huckster extraordinaire and superstar magnifico, will show you the way for the humble price of your soul. Please check out the contract in the description below, sign it up, and we will be ready to go. Oh my God, that was not meant to rhyme. Now, if you would allow me, I will show you the 3 steps to great power and good location descriptions coming up after these very important messages. Welcome friends, welcome to my D&D series where I will be running you through how you can improvise and pre-write excellent descriptions for various things in your games. In this video, we're going to be covering locations, and it's important to understand that mastering the basic and fundamental skill of describing things to your players is one of the most important core tenets of running a game. It's what makes up most of you running a game as a DM. When you run a game, things usually go like this. You describe something, your players tell you what they want to do, or they probe for more information. You describe the outcome or describe the extra information asked for, and then they do the same thing again. And the loop and the grand cycle of life continues, and the game doth run it into infinity. If you are pretty bad at describing things or you struggle with it like I did, then you're going to get stuff like vacant stares, cricket noise, and general confusion as your players feel like they don't know what they can do when they've entered the great tomb of a Makaman and they're trying to find the phylactery of the Lich. This is something I struggled with when I started DMing, and nobody really was there to help. So here I am, friends. Cikito is here to help you out. I have decided to make this series of videos as my contribution to the great body of knowledge that is running D&D games. Now, when improvising location descriptions or pre-writing them, it is important to have some kind of form of reference, some kind of a guideline. And I personally use 3 steps that I think are fundamental to creating amazing location descriptions. If all 3 steps are employed, then you will get a masterful description. If 2 are employed, then you will get an excellent description. And if the single step is employed, then you will get a very good description. As you can see, each step builds upon the previous one. So step 1 is all you really need in order to just do really good, serviceable descriptions of locations. As we go through these 3 steps, we will be writing a description of our own. And as we progress from step 1 to 2 and to 3, we will be enhancing the description we did in step 1 with the lessons and principles of step 2 and 3 until we arrive at what I believe to be an excellent, masterful location description. So, without further ado, let's get into it. The first and fundamental step to describing locations well, the step which you can just do and you don't have to do any of the other ones, is describe the form well. Oh, that's great. I clicked on this video so I could have some half-bald guy tell me that the way to describe locations well is to describe how they look like really well. Yes, I know, it's a little bit obvious. However, that's very important, and there are sub-principles to describing the form of a location that I can tell you right now, and we will then do our example. The sub-principles of describing a location well is you have to describe and highlight everything that is relevant that your players can interact with. Entrances, doorways, of course, unless they're hidden from their point of view. Things and points of interest. It's not like in a novel where you just describe something vague. Your players are in this space, and their ability to interact with that world is limited to what you describe and portray to them. Therefore, you must remember to describe significant things that can be interacted with, like very obviously significant passageways or important landmarks in a given location. That stuff's really important. Or there is a bunch of chests in a corner, or there is a table over there, stuff like that. Things players may want to search or interact with. When describing the form, there's a couple other principles to keep in mind. You want to engage the senses. This is the fundamental thing. How light is it there? What is the light like there? Is it really dark? Are there only braziers lit? Is there only candles lit? Is sun peering through the treetop, through the windows? Is there moonlight? Are the stars lighting up the sky? Things like that are significant. The second thing is engage the sense of sound. What do they hear? Is there crickets? Is there some kind of chittering in the distance? Is the wind howling through the hallway? What do they smell? This is also important. Is it a putrid stench of corpses? Is it a flowery smell of roses? Is it the smell of sweat and oil and coal? Things like that are relevant. The third one is, what do they feel? This is not the most relevant always. This is touch I'm talking about. If they're touching something, some part of it, you could say temperature is relevant to what do they feel. That is significant. Engage that. Keep in mind with the senses, you don't have to literally write a description or describe what they feel with every sense, but at least include one extra sense other than their eyesight, because of course when you describe the form, you're describing what they see. This will help just boost up the immersion and the awesomeness of how your location is received and internalized by your players. Now, let's go into our description that just does the first step well. What we're describing here, our location, is like an ancient ruined temple of a sort. That's what we're describing. These players have just entered into one of the main halls, and now we're just going to run through a description of how we apply just the first principle and the first step of describing the form clearly and well. You enter into a hall, some 50 feet wide and twice as long. Now here we're just strictly sticking to describing the form very well. You're in a hall, we're already describing the dimensions of this place. Its shape and decor illuminated by braziers which sit next to 6 load-bearing pillars which are split into 2 rows. Do you have a clear idea of how this looks like? It's a big hall, you're looking at the front of it, there's 2 rows of pillars, there's braziers that are illuminating the place. You already have an idea of what the lighting is like in this place, you have an idea of what the main prominent features of this place are like. All is silent save for the sound of dancing flame. This is what your players hear. It's important. We're highlighting the idea of it being silent. Maybe there's no people here. It is providing information about the form of the nature of the place. Nobody is present nearby at all. Interesting. A great double door sits on the other side of the hall, opposite of your entrance, whilst the walls to your left and right have 3 passageways, each faintly visible in the firelight. Now we've described all the things that the players can interact with. There's rows of pillars that they may want to inspect. There's a double door right ahead of them on the other side of this 100 feet hall. And to the left and right walls, there are 3 doorways each. We now have a very clear idea what this space looks like. Bam! This is a solid 5 or 6 out of 10 description. You can just do this forever for the rest of your DMing days and you will be successful because it is very clear to your players what they see, where they are, and they have options as to what they can choose to do. Now we understood how to describe the form of a location very well. And with this, we have an excellent serviceable description. But what if we want to make it better? We want to elevate it to that next level of what Cikito thinks is an excellent location description. Well, the second step that I use is implying the history of the place. History of the place could also be known, but most of the time it is implied, but it's very appearance. When we imply the history of a place, we imbue it with personality and character, and a location stops being more just a sterile, dead environment where you understand this is left, this is right, this is a grid of movement and opportunities and options. No, it is more than that. It is a personality, a living, breathing space that feels like it has lived and existed before your players have come there and will continue to exist long after they have left it. It creates this feeling of verisimilitude. It is real and believable and much more immersive. The best way to show what a good implication of history looks like is to just enhance our existing example. Improve it with more words, a couple of sentences, some rearranging, this and that. Let's take a look at it. It is an art, my friends. You enter into an ancient hall, some 50 feet wide and twice as long. We haven't changed that. Its cracked walls and ceiling are illuminated by iron braziers, which sit next to 6 load-bearing pillars, split into 2 rows. Though once these pillars sported fine sculptures, time and misuse has rendered them into broken stone. As you can see in this big sentence here, what we've actually done is we are implying that this place is ancient and it has been weathered by time. We mentioned cracked walls of the ceiling. We also mentioned that these pillars once sported fine sculptures, but time and misuse have rendered them into broken stone. Somebody created and sculpted this place. It is a place important enough to warrant such great decorative efforts. Now, this of course raises questions. Why? And what happened here? And stuff like that. And this is the kind of questions you want people to ask. The moment you imply the history of a place, there may be questions because it is a mystery to be solved. All is silent, save for the sound of dancing flame. Nothing extra to be added here, this is just applying the first principle. On the other side of the hall, opposite your entrance, is a great double door. The only fixture of this hall which does not bear the mark of centuries. By appearance, it seems newly constructed, made of dark oak and fixed to the wall by iron joints. The walls to your left and right each have 3 passageways, veiled by cobwebs and darkened by soot, faintly visible in the firelight. As you can see, we've implied a history of this place. This can be ancient history and recent history. The double door is new. Somebody's installed it there. That's what we can take from this description. This, again, implies that this place is lived in, interesting enough, but the passageways to the left and right walls are not lived in. They're stained by soot, which means they have seen a lot of fire burnt there, probably torches and braziers, and the fact that it has cobwebs means that passage through them is infrequent. But you can see now how this feels like a living space. The players already, just by hearing this, have a feeling that something has happened here. People have lived here. They have done things. It was important to them to create beautiful sculptures and so forth. But nobody's been here for a very long time, except for whoever installed that door. And now these new tenants have moved in. And who are these tenants? And what's going on? The point is, this feels like a living, breathing space. And this is step 2. It has enhanced the description of our location. The third and final step is setting the mood. Now, what is setting the mood? When you write things or when you create stuff, it has a soul and a nature, a certain tone or a theme that you want your players to experience and feel. You've experienced this in whatever you've watched or whatever you read. There is a certain central theme and a feeling that runs through it. It is the same for your location. Now, the first thing to setting a mood is deciding what you want that mood to be for your location. Once you've decided that, then you can use certain flowery words and other various literary techniques to imply and instill that feeling to the best of your ability. Now, this is more of an art than a particular science as far as I understand it, and is a very deep and broad topic that you will find and encounter if you've done a lot of creative writing. So it's very challenging for me to go into the details of what does it take to create a really strong atmosphere and what techniques you should use in a video like this. However, we will, for demonstration purposes, enhance the previous description by instilling and setting a mood over choosing into this location. What is that mood? The mood I've decided for is mild horror and dread with a little bit of intrigue. You enter into an empty hall, dark shadows dancing amidst its corners, pushed back by the faint light of 6 braziers, each situated by a pillar which has supported the ceiling of this ancient place for unknown years. Now, you can see we've already done a tremendous amount of work instilling mood here. The first thing we're doing is we're implying that the hall is empty. Usually when things are empty, there is a sense of vacantness, the unknown. Perhaps people associate ghosts and monsters with it. Empty, ancient places can be quite frightening, but this is just the first attempt at prodding at people's emotions. Some people might be more resistant to that. Your players could all differ. Dark shadows dancing amidst its corners, pushed back by the faint light of braziers. This is like a metaphor for what they might expect in this place. We're implying that there is some kind of a struggle between light and dark here, and that the dark is winning, and that this place will soon be ensconced in absolute darkness. Now, if we played a tabletop role-playing game where not 90% of the races had dark vision, this would be even scarier, but that's a story for another day. And again, we talk about the pillars which have supported the ceiling of this ancient place for unknown years. The idea of saying unknown can also imply a little bit of dread and intrigue. It's like unknown. How long has it been? What is this place? How ancient is it? You already are implying a sense of terror and darkness to it, and now you're saying unknown? The players will be like, what the fuck, man? This is the Eldritch Gods, they live here! Though once they were beautiful, cruel time has rendered the sculptures set into them into grotesque art whose form has been shattered either through misuse or ill intent. You can see what we're doing here. These touch sculptures were beautiful once, but they have been destroyed. Something wonderful resided here once, but something foul has eaten it away. We're implying that, of course, just through flowery words. We use the words like cruel time, which implies, again, something terrible has happened or time has been cruel to them. Why has time been cruel to them? What happened to these places, right? Have some nefarious individuals been through here? And then we use the word, these sculptures have been rendered and destroyed into what appears like grotesque art. We're using these words to instill and imply the feeling of horror and dread. Grotesque things are never received as something wonderful and pleasant. And shattered through misuse or ill intent. Again, we're implying that something sinister and ill and badly natured is going on here or has happened to this place. Though you cannot be certain peering into this ill-lit hall, you estimate that it must be some 50 feet wide and twice as long. Now, we are describing the space and the form of the place like we did before, but we're doing it much later on. We have taken the time to build up the feeling a little bit longer before we go into the, the very dry description of space. But even when we're entering the description of space in this sentence here, we imply uncertainty and lack of clarity as to the true space of this place. Before we just gave it nilly-willy, but now we're implying that they might not be sure how big this place is. And that again creates a feeling of uncertainty, which can create a feeling where they don't feel as safe, where they feel more endangered, and they feel like they're being swallowed by the shadows, which all helps to build and support the feeling we're going for. On the other side of it, opposite your entrance, you see a great double door, whose form distorts the very nature of this place. It does not seem to bear the mark of age, as everything within this place does. Its dark oak and iron joints have been fixed recently, perhaps by whomever tends these fires. So now we're implying the history of the place, of course, but we're using that implication to also set the mood. We say it distorts the very nature of this place. Something has invaded and changed the nature of this place. Using the word distort implies something nasty and sinister. We could have said changed or defies. Defies is different, right? Defies does not necessarily imply a feeling of dread. It might imply a feeling of rebelliousness and a feeling of courage. But distort is like, distort? What the fuck's going on here, right? Foul winds blow through this place, carrying with them the bitter cold. From the walls to your left and right, embraced by darkness as they are, show but a glimpse of passageways from which these winds may have come, free to each side, covered in cobwebs and darkened by soot. We have taken our implication of history, and we have imbued the mood into it. We have engaged the senses with the wind, and often cold, dark winds can invoke a sense of chilliness and dread and like just, ooh, this place is unpleasant. What should we be here? And we use the word foul winds. We didn't have to use that. We could say sweet winds, soft winds, gentle winds, just cold winds. Foul is far more impactful. It's a foul wind. It probably stinks. It feels uncomfortable on the skin. There is something off with the very air of this place. How could that not be spooky? And again, we reference the walls to the left and right, but this time we imply that they're embraced by darkness. That in itself could be a metaphoric implication of the nature of this place and what the players could expect. And the players are not stupid. Nobody's stupid. You reading this would be say, the DM, whoever's written this, is telling me shit's about to go down and something's not right here, right? And then this is a new door, which implies there might be somebody just beyond it because it's no longer abandoned, not truly. You can see how these words are all helping build up the sense of dread and the mood we wanted to imply. That's it. Thank you for the wonderful donation of your soul in exchange for this information. I feel like it has been a worthwhile trade between us. I will file that away in my emporium and you will be contacted by my agents of darkness. In the meanwhile, subscribe, like, share, tell your friends, tell your mama, tell your grandma, anything that helps me become more successful on this platform. And stay tuned for upcoming videos on how to do other descriptions, such as describing creatures and NPCs. Now I know that's a very important one. And describing objects and actions. These will all be separate videos that will be coming up. Until then, be good, and I will see you in the next episode.